Hello, welcome to this week's Loose Links. On your panel this week is Vicky Pearson, Kerry Gillespie, and Rachel Penny. And joining them all is Nicholas James. Good evening and welcome to this week's Loose Links. Good evening, panel. How are we?
Hello.
Are we all right? So what we're talking about on this week's show is we're going to discuss, just 1 second. 1 second, there's a button that's turned up on my screen and I don't know what it is. Pussy takeover.
No, don't do that.
Press.
Well, I didn't quite expect that, Nick. Quite interesting, especially for Rachel. He seems to have accidentally fired over control to me. So probably news to him. I don't know how he's going to handle this. He's never been a panellist before. So yeah, today's show looks like I've been dumped in it last minute, as usual, hosting today's show. So coming on today's show, we have a number of questions. First of all, we're going to be discussing Mint Lane in Lincoln. They're currently hosting, going to be launching a range of new ready meals. We're going to be talking about warm spaces, which is really important at the minute. Michelle Obama's released a new book discussing hate versus fear versus hope in politics. The Boston Christmas lights have been scaled down this year due to the cost of living crisis, and then we're going to finally discuss the Qatar World Cup with the Joan Lycett stunts. So coming up today we have Rachel Penny. Hi Rachel. Kerry Gillespie.
Hi.
And finally, letting him in last, is Nicholas James on the panel. Hi Nick. How's it going?
All right, how are you? I feel kind of nervous.
Are you freaked out? I've installed that electric shock thing on your chair, so I need to behave towards anyone else on the show.
That time too.
Right, so first up on Loose Links tonight, we're going to be discussing the first news article is Lincoln's Mint Lane Cafe and Community Hub. They are located in the centre of Lincoln on Mint Lane, and they do a range of things to support the community, such as there's an end of food life cafe, there's a community larder, various mental health initiatives, group classes, loads of great things. But they're currently looking to expand by creating a range of ready meals, using the food that's been donated to them, often donated in large bulk and they can't possibly sell in the shop. So it's a way of using that food and making sure there isn't a lot of food waste. And also some people really struggle with cooking, and these can be heated in a microwave without using anything else. So it's a really awesome story. So bringing it back to us and in Lincoln, what do you think about food waste? Do you think food waste is a really big problem in this country?
It always has been, hasn't it? It's I can remember working in a particular store that they used to throw everything away last thing at night, and you think that could feed so many people. It was criminal. But I guess there's a certain amount of I suppose legislation is tied up with this, because people are going to, if you have something that's probably near the date, or and they get poorly with it, I suppose you could, don't know where it's come from. But there's a good app you can put on your phone now. It's called Too Good to Go, and you can different shops and outlets sell their leftovers, like restaurants or Greg's or Starbucks or the Spa or anywhere like that, anything that's on its last legs that day that wouldn't last for till tomorrow when they open the store again, that people can put like a bid in for it, not a bid, but they can ask for it and then pay pence for it. And so that's a good idea. That's a start way forward.
Yeah.
You think
I
there should
I
be-
probably have more. I probably have more food waste at home because I'm really particular with when Rachel touched on out of date. I'm really particular at home. So if it goes out of date or a day after out of date, I'll probably chuck it, and I probably wouldn't need to. But there's lots of, isn't it, farmers that have farmed all these vegetables and crops and everything that actually don't sell it. I get like the wonky carrot or wonky potatoes from Morrison's. I figure they're just the other odd ones, because otherwise they wouldn't sell, would they?
There's best before and used by, isn't there? Though, isn't there? You know, best before is okay. You can have a bit of a sniff test, but used by is usually a good guide to go by. My granddad never used to eat a sausage unless it was furry.
Moving on. When we talk about
No need.
The plot already.
talk Rachel, you threw me then. I was just about to say something really serious.
If the hang sausages, and if they had a bit of a glow on them, they were tastier.
I
But
do
they
think
didn't
though,
bother.
when it comes to legislation, I do think maybe we need to be thinking about that. Maybe there should be a legislation that to say to supermarkets that if you do have leftover food or out of date stuff, that actually it should go to food banks. It should go to people that most need it, because there's no legislation at the moment, is it? It's a given choice for a supermarket. So I believe in that, really.
They use that in other countries. There are some other countries that have banned that they have to send it to homeless shelters and things like that. I think it is a really good use. Do you cook, or do you rely on ready-made meals? I mean, you know, because there's a lot of trend now, isn't there, with people just relying on things to bung in the oven and struggling with time and things. Or, you know, I'm a bit of an obsessive with cooking. Absolutely love it.
Kerry's the takeaway queen.
I don't really get a lot. I get a takeaway if you come to mine, because I'm a cook and you expect me to slave over the cooker, and I don't. It's actually cheaper to run your microwave than your oven. So
Is it?
at the moment with costs, yeah. So you may as well get all your ready meals in and use your microwave rather than have your hob on and your cooker going as well. I like cooking. I do like cooking, but I'll always have my cooker on. But the way things are at the moment, you may as well just buy stuff that just goes in your microwave. That's what they're saying. It's cheaper to run your microwave.
And I find it, if I'm completely honest, I love cooking. I do love cooking, but I find it hard to cook for one. I find it really difficult unless I bulk stuff and put it in the freezer. I find it really difficult to cook for one. But I do try my hardest when I come home to stand in the kitchen and cook something, because it's better than ordering a takeaway, isn't it? It's better than. But there are some days where you think, oh, I just can't be bothered. I can't be bothered today.
There's a remedy for that though, Nick, isn't there? You can invite folk round. So payback. Yeah, I think I find it. I'd rather not have ready meals. I'd rather either cook, and if I could stand long enough to cook, I'd cook. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother. I'd let somebody cook for me. But I think it's so much cheaper. But as you say, yeah, it's hard to cook small meals. You know, if you're going to cook something, one large onion usually does a big meal, so you have to add the equivalent to everything else. So freeze it all, but it's worth it in the end. Freeze it, and
that's what I do. Big casserole dish, make something, put it up in them little takeaway dishes. Are perfect for freezing on.
Yeah,
aren't they? Yeah. So do you think everyone here would be interested in a range of, if there was ready meals that were end of life food, so they're not out of date but they're nearing the end of life? Would that put you off, or do you think you'd buy into something like that?
you could always freeze them still, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I don't mind buying something if it's on the day or the day after, or the day before. I'm always wary. I wouldn't ever buy fish if it was like that, or I'd be wary of chicken. There isn't really a great deal left, is there, out of all that? But you know, you can, if you freeze it on the day of purchase, as long as it's got the date for that day, I do the sniff test when I got home first, then freeze it. But I depend on my nose a lot.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm a sniff test person.
Definitely.
How about you guys?
I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say no. Give it a try. Give it a go. It's not going to do any harm, is it? I don't really know. It's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a very good idea to use foods that wouldn't necessarily be thrown away. So it's just one way of using it, isn't it?
Depends how this winter's going to fare on the folk. You know, we all end up by being skint, and I think people are going to start going back to basics. Like I said to Nick earlier, I said, you know, I'm not doing Christmas presents this year. So people are going to cut back, and they're going to try and make do with what. But what I really can't understand is, well, you're cooking, yet schools are still implementing these real wacky ideas with the cookery classes and home economics. You know, they're getting the children to bring in really obscure things and expensive things, you know, when you're not ever going to use all of the amount that you know, like a jar of pesto or some spices or some, you know, Thai green curry. You know, you're not going to use all that, just a paste. You're never going to use that all. And they don't have the schools don't have the basics there already. And you just can't afford to do this. You just can't afford to get
be with schools like that. There should be, like, especially if they're making something particular like that, the school should have a jar of something in, and the kids parents just pay towards it.
We should, or give them something like realistic that they're going to be using, like how to do jacket potatoes and beans and things like that. Things that are basic, and they're cheaper, and there's, you know, just basic foods.
I tell you, when I done home economics, do you know what I learned to do? And this'll stay with me for the rest of my life. It was how to peel a tomato, right? Stick it on a fork and hold it over the hob until it warms up, and then peel a tomato. And I hate warm tomatoes. I hate cooked tomatoes like with a fried breakfast. That'll stick with me forever. How to peel a tomato over the hob. Thanks very much, Jill.
You know what it has done though, coming back to the crisis and bringing it back to ourselves, is it's made us very aware of how much electricity and gas we are using. So I know I'm really, my friends take the mick out of me, but I know I'm really stingent that I won't turn on the heat until the 1st of December. I will fight and fight and fight until the 1st of December. But I've done money saving ways. So, like, I've researched that getting an electric blanket is £1.47 a week to put on. So I've now got an electric blanket on my bed, and I'd rather heat my bed than a whole house. And the other thing that I've noticed as well is everybody's complaining about how much a kettle is to boil, and it goes through on high. Well, again, did some research and bought a 1-cup kettle, and it means that it uses 2 free pence and it only heats 1 cup of water. So I think people just need to be a little bit more logical now on how we can fix this problem without just relying on the government to fix it, how we can survive to get.
Now you've segued me onto my next question, really, because the next thing we're going to be talking about is the Warm Homes initiative. I don't know if you've all heard about the Warm Homes program that's going on. A lot of places, a lot of communities are setting them up. In some areas, local government have got grant funding to help set them up. In Lincolnshire, we don't have any official grant funding. It's having to come from private spaces. The idea of a warm space is somewhere that's free, completely free, offers hot drinks and snacks like biscuits, and that you can go for a period of time and spend, and it's open to the whole community. And the idea is to reduce everybody's household bill across the board. So you can spend 3 hours with your kids having a hot drink rather than boiling your own kettle and putting your own heating on, you know. So these are starting up all over the country at the moment. There's a website, warmspaces.org. If you want to go on there, you can search for your local one if that's something you're interested in. If you're looking at setting one up or you've got one running, you can register it with that space as well, and then other people can help find you. So with the overwhelming number of food banks now in operation, and now the centres setting up heating centres. So we have food centres and heating centres where they can access heating. How do you all feel about the direction this country's going in, that these are now 2 things that are being set up in every community?
Well,
It's
quite
horrendous,
honestly,
isn't it?
you're wrong then, Vicky, because there's two areas of warm spaces, mine and Kerry's house, where Nick goes to keep warm.
And
He
eat,
doesn't
and eat
put
the
no heating
food,
on. He
and
doesn't
eat
put
the
no heating
food.
on. Yeah, he comes and eats and
Yeah.
drinks my biscuits.
Yeah.
He's got to
Rachel
drive.
comes to my house and goes, "Where's the cake? Where's the biscuits?"
No, I come to your house and I put my scarf on and put another coat on. Why isn't your heating on?
Yeah,
I
same
think it's disgusting where it's going, isn't it? It is. You know, you can probably get on top of it with food banks because they've been around for a long time, but warm spaces now is just a bit much.
people are going to be riding around on buses, aren't they, and things like that, and warm like some old age pensioners have been known to do, and going into shops and walking around shops all day.
Where there's buses, because I mean our local services are all being cut. We've got Call Connect now, where you have to call up and book a bus service. See if
Oh my goodness me!
yeah.
I'm going to sit a little bit on the fence here, and Vicky, you can shut me down at any point. Honestly, it's your show.
Shut up, be quiet.
But do you think there's a bit of negativity in me? So this is fantastic for people that absolutely need it, that have not got money to heat their homes and are finding it really hard, and company as well. I think warm spaces is massively about company as well, and not being on your own, especially if we're heading towards blackouts. If we can all meet in a warm space, or all meet together, if you live on your own, fantastic idea. But what about the people that will take the mick about it? So that's what I've got in my head. So people that can afford to put their heating on, that are rolling in it. So like, pure example, David Beckham. David Beckham would never walk into a warm space. But what about these people that take the mick about it? Well, I've got all this money, I can do it, but I'm going to sit down the road because they're offering it for free. They're offering it.
If it's tackling loneliness and that's something that they need, then I'd say that's totally valid anyway.
Yeah,
if they're volunteering, you could volunteer, you know. And I think you're not supposed to be having me talking. I'm supposed to be hosting this, but you got me on it. I think you've got to. There's always going to be somebody taking the mick in any situation. You've got to think, what do you want to do? Do you want to help the people that need it, or do you not? Because there's going to be somebody on either side of that scale that's going to be taking advantage of it. And you know, you just got to focus on what's right and what's the best thing to do, and not worry about.
And I think one of the things that I was thinking of the other day on stuff like this is about the cost of living crisis and your gas and electric, and not being able to pay that, and people not wanting to use gas and electric, not being able to warm the house. Would the house, after so many months, go into disrepair? Is there going to be issues with damp or something going to happen, a burst pipe because they've not been running the boiler through? You know, more cost to the person. Again, you know.
2010, in the house I was in, the landlord came and turned off all the heating because he didn't want us paying for it, and all the pipes burst, and we were all laughing because the whole house was flooded.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's ridiculous, isn't it? Because this is the knock-on effect from these things. People are going to want to either heat the home or eat, and you know, there's going to be people that'll slip through the net on this free meal thing as well, that won't get it, that actually genuinely do need it, because they're trying to keep the house warm for the family or the kids. They're not able to get as much food. They might be able to go to a food bank, but they're not going to be able. They might not even get that because they've got an income. You know, it's a horrible situation. Absolutely horrible. I hate it.
I'm not saying people are stupid, no, by no means, but if people can't feed their families, why not, you know, give some classes of how to feed your family for so much money a week, you know, instead of giving them bombarding them with everything they can't do, and can't have, and you know, and worrying people. It's just worrying all the time. Every time he switches on the television.
You know what I'm thinking? Seeing as though Nick's this amazing cook, he should do a loose links cook off, maybe. A loose links cook off and do a bit of cooking on yeah, one of the weeks, Nicholas.
I just don't recommend Kerry's cooking. But moving forward, what I would want to say though is Rachel, I completely agree with you. But what floods into my mind when you say that is pride. Is massive pride. Like it takes. It's all over social media at the moment. I'm not even going to platform one of them. It's all over social media about food banks at the moment. And actually it's difficult for people, and you can see how difficult it is when people are stepping out the homes and going to a food bank. They don't want to queue up and to be seen like it by their neighbours and their friends because they're suffering. So to put a programme like that in would be fantastic, but would you get people through the door?
Well, I think
they do, but they used to do, where I used to work, they used to do home deliveries of food bags as well.
1066, Kerry, yeah, I've noted that down when you first
Say that again, what was that?
That was in the year 1066 when you first did a job.
They used to deliver some food parcels for people that couldn't get out. I even picked some up and delivered them to some people. So that option is there. A lot of it will rely on volunteers to do that.
Well, when in the lockdown, those Boris boxes that came round, you know,
what?
Boris boxes that came round. We called it a Boris box because anybody that was on PIP or anything like that, did you ever get one, Vicky?
Oh no, because we were supposed to be shielding, but they didn't want us to shield, so they didn't let us shield for 4 months, and then they told us actually we're at high risk, and then they changed the thing, but they never.
So high risk people. I was living with my friend at the time through lockdown. She'd going chemo, and I was at risk as well. So we had these Boris boxes where there were potatoes in it. There was a range of things every week that came, dropped it off, and until the end we got so inundated with food. And I thought, well, this isn't monitored properly. So we said we didn't want it. We didn't want it after a couple of weeks.
I didn't get anything like that. I was shielding, and I didn't get a single ounce.
But you see, if they could do that then, why can't they do that now for the people who need it? Not just because you're vulnerable and you're shielding, but because you actually need it to survive. It's food to survive. But I think more and more people would say yes to that. There's nothing to be proud about by starving.
And food banks, Rach, as well. Food banks are expanding at the moment. So I've been watching this. I've been watching this lady on, and I will try and show it next week. I've been watching this lady that runs a food bank, and she's knocking on people's doors that are in tears, saying, "Look, I've got £1.69 on the electric and £33 on the 33 pence."
I've seen that dark egg girl.
Yeah, and she's putting money on people's gas and electric, and she's done a really strong video this week to the new Prime Minister, and she's addressing the new Prime Minister. What are you going to do about this? How are you going to change that? So I will show it next week because it's a really interesting video.
But the people come together on times like this, because I've got a friend who's the treasurer of one of the food banks in Lincoln, and I can remember when she was living with me, she was getting no end of contributions, no end of donations. It superseded anything before, but it's exhausted now. It's quite exhausted because people have had to rely on it. It's just been going downhill for a long time now, and so it's a good job people were generous in those times. But now I think everybody's in the same boat, even the ones that were quite wealthy and well off before.
I think everyone's electric bill's gone up. I've launched the warm space in my community. I've been working for a couple of months with lots of different cross-community organisations and kind of chairing a few meetings, and we've got people coming and talking to everybody. Even there's a family that lives in one of the biggest houses in the village, and they said this year their electric bills trebled to £1,500 a month from £500 a month. So even though you've got a bigger income, if you've got bigger size, it does affect every single person, doesn't it? you know, no matter where you're at, it's going to take a hit in your income. So how do you think the winter crisis is affecting you personally and your family? What steps are you taking to, like, you know, make sure you're all right this year?
Well,
I bought an electric blanket like
Well,
Nicholas.
why did you buy an electric blanket, Gary Gillespie? Why?
Because you made me jealous. And I can't ever remember having an electric blanket from when I was a little kid. So I went and bought myself one. My heating is on now. My heating's been on for about 45 minutes, and I am watching the clock because I will get up in a minute and turn it off after an hour. I'm very conscious of when I've got it on, when I've got it off.
I think I'd look like a crispy fried duck if I had what electric blanket on my bed, because I'm always spilling stuff in my bed. I fall asleep like I can't even, but no, I think
it's just being sensible, isn't it? What I said about what I talked about earlier about actually do a little bit more research into stuff. So what I'm saying is that I researched actually the cost of living in the home and how to save, and it gives you lots of ideas, and that's where I got the blanket from, and it was all over social media where it was £1.47 a week if you put it on every night. And then I watched, same as you, Carrie, I watched a friend put a video on Facebook about a 1-cup kettle, and I was like, oh my word, why haven't I thought about that? Why haven't I live on my own? It's better than heating. Like, it was something stupid, like I was watching the meter go down 15 pence or something every time I put the kettle on. But now I put the kettle on, it goes down by 3 pence. It's just a no-brainer.
The other way to do it, where did I hear that? Probably on some stupid video as per usual, but filling up a flask.
Yeah.
To then make, especially if you are a hot tea, coffee drinker during the day. I'm terrible. Mine's always on, and that's where I'm going to fall on it, because when I switch my kettle on, my smart meter goes into the red.
Why can't you just put 1 cup of water in your kettle?
Because it'll still go in the red when you switch it on.
Yeah.
What doesn't a 1 cup go into the red?
No, so the 1 cup, what it does is it doesn't boil. I know what you're saying, Rach, but who realistically does that? Who realistically looks at the side of their kettle and fills it up to 1 cup? Nobody does it, do they? You just put it under the water and go for it.
My brother never boils water more than once, so he always makes sure that there's always just 1 cup in there for him to boil. He doesn't use it. He finds that it's not nice to drink. So.
I keep trying to convince Kerry of the 1 cup. That's the next thing I'm trying to convince her to do.
Okay,
Still cost me. I'll have it on about 40 times a day. It's still going to cost me.
I have to have a whistling kettle because I forget about the kettle and it doesn't turn itself off. It gets louder and louder and more urgent until it's spewing all over your kitchen, and then you walk in. You go, oh, yeah, so any other kettle, then I'd never drink a hot drink. I'd have walked off and forgot about it. So would any of you support your local food bank or warm space in any way, whether that was volunteering, going along, talking to people, donating food, donating time, money? Like, is that something you've ever thought about, or is that something you would do?
Definitely.
Can I be honest? Right, I'll be really honest here. I think about it but never do anything about it. If I'm really, really honest, I do think about food banks, and I do think about crisis, and I do think about, but I don't know if I get lost in my own world a little bit with work and with what's going on and home, and like sleep is most important when you work in the world of care. sleep is critical. But if I'm honest, I think about it, but I don't do anything about it, if I'm completely honest.
I do. I've done something most years. I've given something to the homeless people on Monks Road. I went and got like 50 mince pies and enough coffee to make 50 drinks and enough sugar to make 50 drinks and dried milk. But that, you see, all that doesn't go very far. You know, and it's hard for one person to make a difference. But if more people did it, but there's less and less donations going to be given because everybody else is going to need their own charity, and charity is going to start, you know, beginning at home. So people are not going to have the money, the spare bits to. So these warm spaces are possibly, and people's time is possibly the way forward, because I don't think people have got the money to.
No.
And I think like I'm gonna slate it a little bit, and we're celebrating it. But I always watch BBC Children in Need every year. I'm sat at the telly box every single year, and they talk about every year, please donate, please donate, please donate. I think what would make me donate is all these celebrities do amazing things, and hats off to you, you really do. You do amazing things. But if a celebrity came out and said, I'm donating £10,000, it might make me pick up the phone a little bit more. It might make me give £10. It might make me give. But I'm sat there thinking, all these celebrities, yes, you're doing it for free, but actually you've got thousands of pounds in the bank. Show, if you want us to donate, show us what you are donating. And then I might pick up the phone, and I'm quite critical of it. I sit there and think, when like big celebrity, oh, please ring 08457. And I just think, well, donate something live on telly and I might do it.
Unless it's like Marcus Rashford, and there's one or two out there, isn't there, that's done amazing things. And if those were involved, you probably see it differently. But I think give it time. For me, I've never had a lot of money, and I'm never money driven. So when I have enough money, I tend to live within that means, you know. But I've always given time. But my love language is service. So that's something that I enjoy doing for other people. So it's slightly different, isn't it? If other people are not into that, I suppose.
I love that word, Vicky. I'm going to use it. Love language. I like that saying. I've never heard that.
Oh, Google it. There's a whole world of
love
women.
language. Terry, me and you've got a bit of love language.
Dear me. Get you a room in a minute. Right, we're moving to the next question. So it kind of, all of this is, I hadn't done this intentionally, but it's actually all looping on really well. And I'm looking off to the side, I do apologise, I'm just reading everything because I've made sure I've got it all down there. Michelle Obama's just released a new book. She's reflecting on her own thoughts on overcoming hard times and finding your inner light. The book is called The Light We Carry. In a recent interview about the book with Stephen Colbert, which you can find on YouTube, Michelle spoke about living in fear versus living in hope, and talked about a moment she had particularly where she nearly stopped Barack Obama from running for president, and what a life, like world-changing event, her saying no because she was fearful, would have made on that situation compared to living in hope. And she kind of segued that into a lot of politics now. Is the politics of fear, isn't it? You know, the media, all these tabloids is all getting you scared and angry at each other. And a message I really care and think a lot about, and what she was saying and really eloquently putting it, is now is the time to be hopeful and to live in hope and to do the things that are right and try and move into a new era, because you can't combat fear with fear. You can only combat fear with hope. So as working together, like you said, communities coming together, that's kind of where we need to move towards. So yeah, going into the questions on that, scroll down it. What are your thoughts on how the media reports on important news events and discussions?
Oh, blimey, they give you the drama first, don't they? A lot of things that have to be reported, and it just puts, I think they should be a bit more delicate how they present their, or what they find is important, and you know, they in general they dramatize and frighten folk. I don't put the TV on at all, because there's more important things that are left by the wayside, and more, you know, and more local things, and much more important things. But they're too busy on working out what Kate Middleton, what she's wearing, and what she thinks of Meghan Markle, and with the odd side look and cenotaph and things like that. It's ridiculous, you know. It's stupidity. There's more important things going on in this world but having to report it in a way that is factual rather than dramatizing it and frightening people. We've had enough being terrorized and frightened, and people are just going to start to ignore it and not put the TV on soon. You know,
They say, don't they? They say knowledge is power. That's what they say. And when I really want to read this book, actually, and it was so strange, Vicky, because I was literally, when I read the email, Vicky's done the email this week, I've had a week off. When I read the email, I was like, oh my goodness, I was literally staring at this book in the shop window this week, thinking, oh, I quite like the title of that. I wouldn't mind reading it. But I think you've got to be very, very careful when it comes to politics and when speaking out, because actually she sounds she's done an amazing journey, and actually she's a woman, if I'm honest, that I look up to. I think she's incredible on what she does. But then I watched a programme, I fell upon a programme, sorry, because I wanted to watch the programme afterwards, about Edwina Currie and about when she was in power. Who was the Prime Minister then?
John Major, wasn't it?
John Major, yeah. And
Major.
Yes, she was very hurt and she was turned a different way and stuff like that. And I completely get that. But again, her knowledge and power was horrendous when it came out. Do you know what I mean? Her diaries that she publicly showed, her books that she had written about him and stuff like that. And I just thought, that's just revenge. That isn't powerful at all. That's just utter revenge and nastiness. And actually, Obama, she's never done that, has she? She's always, even when her husband had to shake bloody Boris Johnson's hand, she stood there with her head held high. She never said anything to the public or spoke out or anything. And I think what I'm trying to say is knowledge is power. And actually, if you've got the right frame of mind and the right way of doing it, it can be impractical.
Definitely. Talks a lot about that as well, in regards to being positive and finding the light and all of that that you were just saying. She actually, she covers a lot of that. The next question on that, do you think it's time for a new kind of politics in this country and in general?
I've tried all the others, haven't we?
You do, if nobody's going for that one. What would you like to see in 10 years? If you could dream up a new future, we're at the point where our government's collapsing. It's not theory anymore. I think that's happening. What would you see in 10 years if you could fix it? How would you see things going better?
Vicky, do you want my political opinion?
Every time.
I think I'm going to vote anti-deck, because actually I can't think of anybody else that can sit in that seat at the moment and take over a crisis that we're in. I just think it's, and I know it's, I've said this on the show before, and ladies, I need to talk up in a minute because I feel like I'm talking loads, but I feel that actually, I know there's a Prime Minister and a team, but actually I think this is too big for one person. Far too, we've gone into crisis mode, and I think you are right, Vicky. I think our government is collapsing.
I mean, they can form a cross-party political movement, and it has been ordered in the past. There is one or two examples in history where it's happened. So theoretically, that is a solution.
It might be an idea to get the best of each party and put all their heads together, and because it's like the country's all divided of who they want to, who they believe in and who they want to run the country. So, why not? It's a bit of a shambles. I'd like Great Britain to come back to be Great Britain, to be able to. We were governed a lot by Brussels and what we could do and what we couldn't do. I think we've lost that. We've lost our trademarks. We've lost our business sense and our being able to cope and manage, and our the way the British people would live. We're all a load of snowflakes now. We've all been pushed about and messed about with, told what we cannot do and what we can do. It's about time we got a little bit of ingenuity and a bit of common sense put back into the country. And You
Oh,
know,
I'm
get
voting Rachel Penny, I am.
didn't say I had any common sense, but we need some.
How about you, Kerry?
To be fair, I got distracted because I got people coming in the kitchen. So
Boring,
I knew
Kerry.
you were talking, but my mind's like, go back in now. So I've completely lost it. I've lost my train of thought.
If you country in 10 years, or how would you fix it? What would you think needs to be done? You're Prime Minister for a day.
If it was permanent, well, I'd like to know where all this frigging money's coming from that they're pulling out of every left, right and centre, when previously we had no money at all, and all of a sudden you've got all this money to give out to the gas. I've got a big thing with gas and electric companies. They've got all this money to give to gas and electric companies.
If you want to research,
who then give it back to us, don't they, by this £66 each month, which is just from the government. You just think, yeah, there's got to be a lockdown on all these money grabbing big consumer companies for starters. There's got to be a lockdown on the amount of money. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you're the director CEO of a big company, then yeah, you get a bonus, but not what I've been reading in the media. Like you just referring back to media, you're reading things, it boils my bloody blood sometimes reading it, and you're thinking, yeah, those people do work the backsides off and they're in that job for a reason, but it does make me question. It makes me question an awful lot what is wrong with the system. If you can have all the people in the UK needing somewhere warm to go, needing some food, this, that and the other, and you're still happy to say to these companies, okay, yeah, you've made X amount of billion, you take all that, I don't get it. I don't like thinking of it.
I think the workers should be able to still obtain a profit earning bonus if they've made a good profit and they've worked damned hard for it, then they should. But I don't think the bosses should. And this goes on to Liz Truss as well. She's come out with by just doing 40.
It's disgusting. That's disgusting. And not just.
She didn't even make any headway at all. So she never.
No, nothing.
She didn't make any performance.
Today she was in power. She was actually Parliament was adjourned as well, so she didn't even work that many days. She only did like.
And
I've only touched on. I can never pronounce his name. Rishi and the wife, and how much where they've got. What's that saying? Oh God, I think it's a rude saying. I don't think you can say it.
We've got to make sacrifices, though, Kerry. Did you hear that? We've all got to make sacrifices, Rishi says.
How many fingers in pies or something like that, innit? You think all the money that they're getting, and you making sacrifices. I bet you when they're 60, they'll get this little when they're 60 or 65 at retirement age. But actually, don't know how long retirement's going to be before we have to retire at our age. But when they retire, are they going to get the little? Yeah, are they going to get the little vouchers to keep the houses warm each month? Are they going to be entitled to it? Most probably, yeah.
And the thing is, to us people that just working class people every single day, to get a job, there's a 6-month probation period. You've got to be in a job for a certain amount of time before you can claim sick pay. You've got to be in a job a certain amount of time before you are entitled to maternity pay. So if we are all doing this underneath them, surely in my eyes, if a prime minister hasn't done a job and hasn't done the job correctly, and then to me, you should be told, thank you very much for trying, but off you go, like everybody else is, and you get.
They're not going to change it. They're not going to change. They're not going to change what they've done. It's not going to happen. We can all get het up and pissed off. We can all get het up and fed up about it. Sorry, we can all get fed up and angry about it. But what's it going to do? The media has thrown this out everywhere anyway for everyone and kept going on and on about it. Yeah, what was she in 44 days, 45 days or something like that? 115,000 a year pension. Is that what it was? Mm-hmm.
And this thing where the people at the top work the hardest, some of the hardest working people I've ever met work on farms, shovel manure, sweep the streets, clean the schools, work on tills. Those people, they deserve the money that those directors are getting every time.
Carers.
Carers.
And if I'm honest, when we talk
I'd
about
rather give them that. I'd give them all
yeah,
that.
exactly. And when I talk about the world of work, and I'm going to be really critical here, and I'm going to go back to a statement that Rachel said about snowflakes, is when people, it winds me up somewhat chronic when people say to me there are no jobs out there. There are jobs out there, but people have got a standard to where they want to be, and actually I'm not getting out of bed until I've hit that standard. And what I really struggle with is there's, to me, the younger generation, and you can argue out with me out there, the younger generation, no one wants to start from the bottom anymore and work the way up. Everybody wants to be in CEO position, and I'm not, and this is where I'm a little bit critical of the benefit system, because there are people that would say, and quite rightly, I don't disagree with them, quite rightly, you will say, someone will say to them, oh, right, I've got this job here, would you go for this job? And people are saying back, well, no, because I get paid more in benefits. So what's the assumption of moving off the benefit system?
Yeah, but it's not the benefits system's problem. It's not, they're saying this is the minimum amount that a human being needs to live, and it is absolutely bare minimum amount a human needs to live, and there are people who are working who earn less than that, who are working. That is the problem, not the people. There's a lot of rage gets put at people on benefits, people who genuinely need it, whether it's for a very short period or for a very long period. You know, those are not to blame for that.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not, but the people that can work,
it isn't a living wage, is it? It's
no,
not.
but do you believe the people that can work and there are some people out there that I would give every penny of my tax to, because actually they're either really poorly, really ill, can't work, whatever. I'm happy to give my tax money to every single one of them. But I've worked for the job centre for a little while, and when you hear people come in and go, right, will you go for this job? And they go, well, actually, no, because the benefit system is paying me more than that job. So what's making me leave the benefit system to get less money? And it's not their fault. No. It's the benefit system within themselves. Are we paying people too much for people to say, actually, I'm not taking that job because the system's helping me more?
Now, without going into a huge rant, I could really go into this. And if you ever want to have a chat with me on research automation, after all of this, research automation, research the fiat economic system, because that answers your question, Kerry, on where this money comes from. The economy, the magic money tree has all been a lie. It's been told by the media for a long time, because they can actually just create money. They just have to make sure it doesn't have an adverse effect on the economy in the long run. So that's where the money comes from. So moving on, next question, because we're running out of time a little bit. Boston Christmas lights display has been scaled back this year. Boston Borough Council has made the decision to scale back the town's Christmas lights this year due to rising costs and energy prices. They previously intended to light up the whole town, but they've had to change their plans now because their budgets just don't cover the costs. Some residents are calling the council Scrooges, but there is no hiding this year that energy, is going to be a lot more expensive. So are you all ready for Christmas? Rachel's touched on a little bit, or are you already scaling back?
Definitely scaling back. I haven't bought a thing for Christmas yet. It's kind of zoomed up and hit me between the eyes actually this week. No, I'll be scaling back, definitely. Only buying for children this year, and I think it's, like I said, back to basics. I think family and company, I think that means more than and food and a warm house for the day.
The way this is going, Rachel, no one's got no food, and we're not never going to have a warm house, are we? So we've got to have something. We've got to have something out of that. How much your family's got to cut back on? Heating, food, Christmas, and what else is it going to be?
And can we afford to turn the Christmas tree lights on this year?
Well, this is what they're saying, but you see, people put battery lights on and things like that, knowing what they're going to actually use. But also that they came out with ridiculous things like there's going to be a sprout shortage. There's going to be a turkey shortage because of avian flu. They just
I
bombard.
seen a video from a farmer recently, actually. I'll have to try and find it. I can't remember for the life of me what it was. And he was saying this avian flu totally blown out of proportion. What it is when they're laying the eggs, the supermarkets won't pay the price what the farmers need them to pay, because for them to maintain the chickens and feed the chickens and do all that is costing more money. The supermarkets aren't paying. However, the supermarkets have hiked the price up, so we're paying more, but that money isn't getting to the farmers. And there's been a massive thing blown up over this avian flu. He said it's nothing like it at all. Again, the bloody media. Who controls this media? The government, 100%, with a lot of stuff that goes in the media.
That's really interesting, because that same thing happened to the dairy industry 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It got absolutely taken over and similar things were happening.
It's weird, isn't it? It's something, yeah, something's not right.
Well, Kerry, you're building, aren't you? It's coming out. The Kerry glass is coming
It's a
out.
little bit. I get really rattled. I get really mad with people.
And this is why I love
taking
you on
the
the show, because you try and remain calm and professional all the way through, and then once I
I'm
direct home.
I'm all right.
The media steers the country into ways of thinking, and it's not right. I think we're all getting clued up to that, or getting wise to it.
Just puts a lot of pressure. I feel very pressured, you know, with things like keeping the house warm and doing all this, that you let Christmas come. Sometimes, some days I feel very pressured in trying to ensure that everything is covered and everything goes how it needs to go.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the last question on this is, do you think everybody should be scaling back, or do you think this is a year we should actually celebrate Christmas more so, even if it's just on the day, you know, as that thing that gets us through the winter? Because that's why Christmas, well, I'm not going to that because I'm not a Christian. Right.
I am a bit of a Scrooge.
It's the good middle of the winter thing that keeps you all going, isn't it?
I am a bit of a Scrooge. So when it comes to Christmas lights and tinsel and all of that, I love Christmas. Well, I've started to love Christmas. My husband in 2012 proposed on Christmas Eve, so I'm starting to love Christmas again. But I don't know, it's just something inside me when I see Christmas lights out in November. I think we haven't even hit Advent yet. Why don't rush it here? Because I think realistically I'm a Scrooge, because I'm thinking, buggery, I've got nothing done yet. I've got absolutely nothing done. And it's sort of hits you in the face all of a sudden, doesn't it? It's sort of Christmas smacks you in the face in all the shops, in houses, and in Christmas trees. Or like I'm so much of a Scrooge. My tree doesn't go up till the 23rd of December by the year. 23rd of December. And it comes down. It's supposed to be 12 days in it, and I don't even oblige by that. New Year's Eve, it's down. I'm not having it up for New Year's Day. No way.
I didn't put your tree up last year at that time, Nick.
Well, it must have been about 15, 16, but it wasn't any earlier than that, Rachel. I can tell you that for certain.
So you're lying. You're lying.
He didn't put it up at all.
Do you think that's a male thing though, the whole leaving it till last minute? Because
we're just being sexist,
family, we start in July. So that's when I start in July, getting the little bits, making sure it's spread out over the year, a little bit each month.
No,
I love the pressure and anxiety and heart failure you get of doing it last minute, like, you know, palpitations. I'm in nearly at the end of November. I've got about 3 presents. I do it to myself every time and I hate it. I wish I could be like you and start that early and get a few little bits. In my brain, I think come January, I'll buy something every month. Never happens.
How about you, Rachel?
No, well, I think we're just gonna have plenty of food and plenty of company, and just enjoy it, because we've got 2. My brother's got a new grandchild, and so have I. Well, say new, but they're going to be both 2 this year, And so they're going to know things, they're going to see it, they're going to see the lights, and they're going to enjoy it. So that's going to be magical. But I think it's going back to how we used to have Christmases. I used to have a stocking, proper stocking. My grandmother used to knit things and used to put monkey nuts in and a tangerine and a bit of chocolate and things like that. But it was magical because you used to love it, love getting these bits out. But you see, these kind of foods, they're 10 a penny. They used to be 10 a penny a couple of years ago. We used to just go to I can remember going to the supermarket with my mum and getting yogurts once a week, 4 ski yogurts with nice, they're in like the churns. But once they're gone, we didn't go to say, oh, I've run out of yogurts, so go and get some from the co-op or something like that. We used to only have them once a week. Mars bars, 4 Mars bars, put them in the freezer once a week. Once we'd eaten all these things, they never got replaced and replenished every day. So you have to go back to how you used to do it and not be so spoiled. And if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. So that's all there is to it. We'll ride it out, but that's what we're good at.
Yeah, I do think we are good at that as a country. We kind of just get on with stuff, don't we? Sometimes we need a bit more fire, though. I think we could stop things and make changes if we didn't just get on with it. So the final question I put in last minute because everybody's been talking about it. So this is the one that's on all the headlines right now. Comedian Joe Lycett has been back in the news again, this time taking aim at David Beckham, supporting the World Cup in Qatar. Qatar has a particular atrocious record for human rights, with homosexuality in particular being illegal and can be punishable by death. So this is quite severe. Joe has shredded £10,000. I think it was it Sunday? I think he did it after David Beckham ignored everything he was saying and continued to endorse the event as a sponsor. So not just going, he's actually saying, this is brilliant, I endorse this. Joe stated that stunt is intended to make you feel uncomfortable, as you should feel uncomfortable with what's currently going on in Qatar and the fact if people are not allowed to be who they are in themselves and can be, punished, but with the death penalty, that the stunt should make you feel in that way. Other people are outraged because they said the money should go to charity, and I'm seeing a lot of people talking about that all across social media. And yes, there's a lot of conversation on that. What are your thoughts on the Joe Lycett stunt? With shredding the money? I know Nick's got a lot to say on this.
It could have gone to a charity, couldn't it? But like he said, he wants us to be uncomfortable, like how it feels for other people with what David Beckham's doing, so I can get it that way. But at the same time, I did see only a clip of Piers Morgan, believe it or not, recently saying, hold on a minute, all this is heightened up because of Qatar. What about all the other countries where the World Cup's being held, where they are against your sexuality as well? Why is it all heightened now? Is it all heightened now because David Beckham's endorsed it? Well, why isn't this being why hasn't people kicked off previously in the years prior when it's being held elsewhere?
Amazing. It's only last month that David Beckham was a hero. Now he's zero, isn't he?
Well, the thing is as well, what boils me is, first of all, I'm very lucky and fortunate that I came out 18 and I was well supported, and actually I've never really experienced homophobia. Never, touch wood, never really experienced it at all. But when they talk about it's wrong to be gay and it's a sin and it's this, that and the other, I always resort back to, right, tell me why then. Well, it says in the Bible. It says in the Bible, and this is where I really struggle. But when I was 18, it was a choice for me. I was either gay or I was going to be Christian. But I had a very, very good vicar and a very good best friend that collided those worlds together, and a very good church that was very, very accepting. But my argument is when they say that man should not lay next to man, and that's the Bible quote that goes through it, they seem to forget the rest of the verse. So the rest of the verse says none of us should be wearing fibres. a woman should only be seen by her eyes when she goes into a church building. So actually, if you're going to take one segment of the Bible, to my eyes, you've got to take the whole thing. You can't just pick and pull a verse out and pick and pull a line and go, right, I'll go along with that one, but we'll forget what the rest of the Bible says. That's what makes me angry.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree. Do you think the LGBTQA community is respected enough for events like this to go ahead? Do you think it's respected enough in this country? I know internationally it's totally different, but do you think there is that understanding there in this country and we are getting better, or do you think we've got a long way to go?
It's a difficult one because it's being held in a different country. We haven't really got any say, have we, how they
No, but in our country, Carrie, what Vicky is saying is, in our country, in the UK, do you think we've got a long way to go still with the LGBT community and being accepted?
Well, if you're going to compare us to Qatar and all the others, then we're nowhere like that, are we? So I don't think we have got a long way to go. We've certainly got some more bloody steps to make first. But if you're going to compare us against this, way out of league.
I think the question is bringing it home to how we experience things in our country compared to them, because it's totally different. Cultural changes, you know, religious, it's very, very different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't compare it. It's more just, are we doing enough in our country and in our communities?
It's simple little things that bring it back down to me. When you can walk anywhere in the UK hand in hand with the same sex, we're getting there. Because actually, I don't know if I would do it in Lincoln. I don't know if I would. The only place that I feel safe is doing it is Manchester and Brighton, where I feel like I can walk hand in hand down the street. I can kiss my partner goodbye. I can, and I think what I think people forget, and this isn't a push at anybody, is that when you walk hand in hand, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, I think people forget how much of a privilege that is, and forget how privileged you are to do that without even thinking, without even turning a corner, without looking across the road, without thinking that you're going to be judged, without being stared at. Rachel, for example, if you walk down...
But don't you think as well, with what you're saying now, that you should just go out and do that because that's what you want to do, because otherwise you're just bowing down and people are people are never going to change because you're not going ahead and living your life and doing what you want. So people, in your eyes, people are always going to judge because you're always going to be afraid to hold hands. It's got to be a bit of both, eh? You can't just push it on everyone to accept stuff. You've got to live your life and do that, and people have got to see it. It's one of them.
Gary, but there's still homophobic attacks in the UK. There's still people put in hospital in the UK.
So from your point of view then, how do you overcome that? Because I'm educated on this, I've got no answers and I've got nothing else to say on it. I'm educated, I accept it, and that's it. I can't talk for other people who don't. How are you supposed to educate? You tell me. If I was like that and I didn't understand it, how would you educate me in coming to not religion related, but getting me to come to terms with, actually it's okay for a man to love a man or a woman to love a woman, or whichever. How would you educate me? Because we have these conversations quite a lot on Loose Links. Not one person's educated me enough to say, this is what we do. We sit down at school, we whatever. Tell us.
I got an example actually, that in Sweden they have a people library, and people can go and talk to somebody with an experience that they've never had. So people will go who have homophobic views on things, and they will go and sit for an hour and talk with somebody and talk about their life. And it was a small initiative to start up and has been actually brought in and put into libraries, and people volunteer 3-4 hours of their time and say what their thing is, and people come and talk. And I think the solution is I think talking to people and showing that we're all real people humanizes everything. And we're dehumanized when we don't talk to each other.
But it is like that, isn't it? Like you say, that's talking to people like that on a very personal level. It's not sitting there debating stuff like you see on the TV. That's what I don't like, because debating gets out of hand. But what have we got in this country to do something like that, to sit and talk?
Pride. Pride is massive. That's why we
No,
do
hold on a
pride.
minute. Hold on a minute. No, hold on a minute. You want to start this from further down, not when someone's out. Like, you want to do it at Pride when everyone's having a drink and everyone's being merry, Nicholas.
No, LGBT.
It doesn't just. Yeah, it doesn't
LGBT
just work like that.
It is-
That isn't educating in
Harry,
my eyes.
but it's becoming more and more in the education system nowadays. Like at schools, there's LGBT communities now at schools, and friends that gather and debate and discuss and all of that. So it is starting.
So is it getting educated in school? Is that just for teenagers, children that want to go and speak to someone, or is it
it's becoming, because gender is so massive now. Gender is absolutely massive.
So what do they do in schools then? Educate. What do they do in schools?
I will say, cutting out, the big issue we have is there was a thing called Section 21 that Margaret Thatcher brought in, where schools were banned from talking about or supporting any LGBT issues in school. So, I mean, I went to school with people who were gay and they were unable to hide it. They had, you know, in their voices and things, it was very obvious. And those children got tortured. Every single day, those children I watched get tortured. And I was friends with people because I'm that person that just goes around and you know, talks to people. But nobody did anything. There was no guidance in school. It was just nothing. It was allowed to happen. And what we're experiencing now is the fallout from not educating people in the 90s and early 2000s, late 80s. Whereas if now we're educating people in schools, it would take 15, 20 years for that to trickle down.
To evolve around. But is it, are people being educated now? Is it being spoken about in class?
It is, and that actually segues me onto my last question slightly, because I was talking to somebody recently, and they held some concern. They were concerned. I don't share that, but they were concerned that in schools people are being taught too much about LGBTQA history, information, and then it's a way of brainwashing people into accepting that that's an okay way to live. And as a way for me, having that conversation and talking to that person, trying to explain this a little more, they just have no education. They had absolutely no understanding. They've never met anyone that's part of that community. They don't understand it, and they're genuinely, it was coming from a place of fear, not a place of bigotry or hate. It was a genuine live in the middle of Lincolnshire, don't live in a city, very small village kind of mentality. So the next question is there are people that say that they feel LGBTQA rights are a threat on the classic family model. And obviously I have a lot of views on this. I know Nick has a lot of views on this. What would you say to that?
Oh, Nick. I knew this.
Come on, Rach, tell us.
I didn't know. I thought it was Vicky was asking you.
No, well, what do you think it's shoved too far down our necks in the year of 2022?
I think my personal belief is that any gay person has got the right to live how they should want to live and how they are as a human being. They have the right. That nobody has a right to tell anybody else how to live their life. I do think it's very probably old-fashioned. This is probably an old-fashioned way of saying, I've probably shot down here, but I do think children will find their own way. If they are gay and they are born into the wrong body, I do not believe for 1 minute you choose what sexuality you are. I believe you are what sexuality you are when you're born.
I think it's
just a minute, Nick. But the way that it's being taught in schools, I don't know how it's being taught in schools. I only hear from various parents that say my child has come home today, wants to be this, wants to be that. They know more different sexualities than the parents know, because a lot of it appears to me is quite trendy. Oh, it's trendy to be non-binary today. I'm going to be one of those. And children
I think
are
it's
not allowed.
confusing. I think it confuses teenagers.
Well, it's not just teenagers, it's lower down the scale, it's primary
Mm.
school.
Mm.
And
So Rachel,
children-
when you were young,
listen a minute, Nick, children have got to be children first.
yes, and I get that.
Whether they are male or female, or what they decide their body is showing them.
Yeah, but Rachel, there's exploring as well. You've got to consider.
Explore, but there
Yeah,
are different,
because the thing
but
is,
there
even
are
you-
different mentalities.
yes,
But
but
some
even you
children
as a
can't
child,
cope with this.
but
Yeah,
even
it
you
is.
as a Rachel, even you as a child would have
Mhm.
explored your own
Of course.
sexuality and
Of
your
course.
own. So if children believe at one point, and children believe that they're non-binary, they might start off on that journey and not end up there. But we still got to allow children to explore.
Yes, let them have freedom, let them explore, but don't let them find themselves exploring without being a child. You know, they've got to be, the people concentrate too much on educating them to what their sexuality is. They will find out what they are.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that. But what I would
they'll
push forward is
childhood finding it.
but you can't. I completely agree with that. Completely agree. But and parents not educating their children to right, this is the way you need to be. But in the same respect, you've got to put it back on the other scale. So if the child says to you, "I feel like this," you've got to be open to that. You've got to be ready for that.
Of course.
You've got to. So I get what you're saying about it being the other way and parents slamming down. Like there's been a news article about a baby being non-binary. I don't agree with that, because you're taking that choice away from that child. But if that child comes to you and says, "I want to be this is me," a parent then can't turn around and say, "Well, no, because you need to be a child." You've got to let them explore that area.
No, I don't believe that the parent would say, "You've got to be a child." Let the child come through this stage by itself. If the child,
I agree with that.
If a child came to me, if my child came to me and says, "Alice," I'd explore it with them. Make sure that they weren't being. But also, you get different types of parents. Some that wouldn't entertain the fact. And so they have to go somewhere to get this information. I understand that. Yeah. But I think it's I do think that we need something because the state of how people struggle nowadays, we've got to find a way of making it acceptable for everybody. And it hasn't worked so far. We're just kind of coming through it seem to be. But you know, I'd find it absolutely unbearable to the fact that if my son or my daughter came to me and said they were gay, I'd feel so much sadness for them, for the struggle that they're going to get. That's the only reason I'd feel sad, because it's such a damn struggle for anybody to be who they are these days.
Well, do you know what? I've got numerous gay friends and family as well, and I haven't seen struggling like you're saying, Nick, anyway, for starters. I've seen that, and it does stem down to support that you've got around you 100% as well, and acceptance around you. And that's where I'm saying before, why don't you walk down the street hand in hand? Well, I might get attacked, it does happen in the UK, but you need to be surrounding yourself with people that will support you. And you know, if it's never going to happen, and you're never going to hold hands, and you're never going to walk down the street, we're never going to be educating people on this level what we should be. Not throwing it down your throat in the media.
Well, no, I don't agree with that, Rach, either. But what I want to say to you, Kerry, is you've hit the nail on the head there. If you are well supported, it gives you the confidence
And how do you get well supported? Here I'm going again. I can feel myself going again here. How do we get well supported?
Family
What
and
is
friends.
happening in the UK? We have these things. We have these things in school. That's great.
But
Let's teach
but
the
Kerry,
kids.
it starts from home. It
No,
starts from
well,
home.
it's not now. It's not going to start at home with everyone, Nicholas. I'm
No,
not being
but that's
funny.
what I'm saying.
No, it doesn't
Kerry,
always start at home.
Kerry,
No,
that's what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying to you is, if you are well supported at home and you come forward and your mum and dad are accepting, your grandma and granddad are accepting, your cousins are accepting, your best friend is accepting, you don't give a flying doodah what the will.
Yeah.
Because
So
you're
what I'm
saying,
saying then is, when somebody comes out and that family disowns them, what the hell have people got? What have we got?
Yeah, that is a massive point. Yeah, there's no groups.
It's all good and well having these talks in school. That's great, but what about these people that have gone through years and years?
Yeah.
You know,
People-
who are past
people-
school age.
People
What
have
is
even
that?
got married and had children before they've come out. Do you know what I mean? Because they're so afraid.
And I'm telling you now, Nicholas, don't argue again with me on loose links, because otherwise I'll come round there and slap that smirk off your face.
And on that note, we're getting towards the end of the show. Normally I do an inspirational finish quote, but we'll finish with Kerry's inspirational finish quote.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So Nick, how have you found this tonight then?
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed being a panelist. It's quite nice to take my hands off the reins and to be a panelist. Vicky, we might, you know how like Lorraine has a stand-in. Lorraine for when she wants like a week off. I've got a couple of people now in mind when I want a week off.
I bet you have. Well, it's been a pleasure tonight to do that. I enjoyed.
Well done to Vicky. Well done to Vicky. She's done amazing. Well done.
Thank you all for not bullying me the way Nick normally bullies people. I haven't bullied any of you, so I like to say that if you live in hope rather than fear, creating fear, Nicholas, it creates a different environment, doesn't it?
It's been ding with me and Carrie tonight, though, hasn't it? In the corner.
Challenges. That's what we all live in fear of with loose links, I think. Yeah, before we go, I just want to shout out to anyone that watches and wants to get involved in the show. We're after panelists, anyone that's got involved regularly, or maybe a once off, you want to do a guest show, talk about something you're doing, be on the panel, get in touch. You can message me or Nick. Both of us are kind of running the recruitment at the minute, so I might as well throw that out there. If you think you could be on here and you've got an opinion, or you were screaming at the screen because you disagree with everything we were saying, then get in touch, and maybe you could be on this panel giving your opinions. So yeah, it's the end of the show this week. So as normal, I guess, we'll say goodbye. So tonight we had Rachel Penny.
Bye.
Kerry Gillespie.
Bye.
And Nicholas James on the panel this week. Next week he will be back as normal for a regular show without any takeovers. So thank you all very much and have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.